everybody, Kelly Burgess here with your monthly Plate It Up Kentucky Proud Recipe segment. I'm the Family Consumer Sciences Extension Agent at the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service in Allen County, and I'm missing my good friend Barry Hyatt today, who's usually here to host and cook with me, but we still want to bring you a monthly recipe segment, and we're excited that we're able to do that, and hopefully Barry will be able to join us back again next month. So today we are going to be making asparagus tomato salad, and this might be a combination of vegetables and ingredients that you've never thought of or tried before, but I can tell you for sure that it's going to be very tasty. So as I begin to tell you about our ingredients, one thing I'll go ahead and point out is that I have set up a steamer, a pot with a steamer basket inside. So you can use anything for a steamer basket, but the point is that we have just a little bit of boiling water in the bottom of a pot. About an inch will do, just doesn't have to be a lot. And then something that we can put our vegetables in where they can steam, but we don't want them to be in the water. So that's why I have a larger pot to accommodate the amount of vegetables that we'll have. So asparagus is our spotlight produce for today. It is a spring vegetable available throughout the months of April and May in Kentucky. We also have grape tomatoes or cherry tomatoes, either one. We have zucchini and green onion, and those are our main produce items. And then for the dressing or for the sauce, we have olive oil, red wine vinegar, honey mustard, seasoned salt and minced garlic, and then our toppers are chopped parsley and fresh mozzarella cheese. So that's a little bit about the ingredients, and while this water's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about how we prepare our asparagus. So I have most of our asparagus cut up already, and just a note, I have washed my hands. Hopefully you've been washing your hands a lot too. And we have washed all of our produce items ahead of time. So something with asparagus that we want to look for is that we want the stalks to be relatively uniform in their width. And this is because that will help them cook at the same rate. So if we had a couple of very thin stalks and then a few thicker stalks, those thin ones might be overdone before those thick ones are even cooked. So since I've picked stalks that are about the same width, first what we need to do is we need to remove that woody bottom part of the asparagus that we don't want in our salad. So all you do is you can simply break it with your fingers, and the stalk will naturally break off at the place where the woody stalk ends. So you heard that nice snapping sound. We can do a couple at a time. Of course, we don't want to waste any of the good parts of our vegetables, but since this is a salad that will be eaten fresh, we don't want to have those woody parts of the asparagus. So when you work it with your hands, you can tell, you try and go about an inch up from the bottom is generally where the stalk will break, and we just want to take off those woody parts. So we're not wasting any of the good parts of the vegetable, but there is a little bit that we need to remove. Now our next step is to line up all the stalks evenly, and this way we can cut them with our knife all at the same time, and this saves us a little bit of time. The recipe calls for us to cut them into about 1-inch pieces, so we'll do that, whoops, we have some runaways here, and add them to our bowl. So now that we have our asparagus cut up, the next step is to cut up our zucchini. So while I'm talking about our zucchini, we're going to cut this first in half lengthwise, and then we'll cut it into about 1/4 inch slices. The reason that we're cutting it in half ahead of time is so that we can have a flat surface to place on the cutting board. And then we can line up both halves together at the same time, and it's very easy to just chop all at the same time, and quick. I can hear our water starting to boil in our pot, so that is perfect timing. And we are gonna steam our asparagus and our zucchini in this pot for about 2 minutes. So I'm gonna take this lid off and go ahead and get our zucchini in here. Let's see if I can do this without having any runaways. All right, we made it. We'll add our asparagus. And it's okay if they're a little bit more tightly packed in here. The point is that we want them over that boiling water. And we'll go ahead and check for about 2 minutes on those. So while that's steaming, our next step that we can go ahead and do is to cut up our tomatoes. We want them to be in halves. And so we'll just cut those easily with our chef's knife. This recipe is great. I noticed as I was preparing that it doesn't actually require very many dishes or different knives or bowls or any of that stuff. So it's a pretty easy recipe for cleanup and for prep at the same time. Something I'll note about the tomatoes, the reason that we're using the cherry or grape tomatoes is because we recognize that these produce items are not available during the same time of the year. So we don't have those big, juicy Kentucky tomatoes available this early in the spring. So that's why we're using the smaller ones. They might be ready a little bit earlier or more easy to find fresh at this time of year. Ooh, we got a little splatter going there. Something that we want to look for, I'll mention with our asparagus, in addition to the uniformity of the width of the stalks, we also want to look for those crowns, or the top part, the super yummy part, to be tightly wound or together. We don't want those to be loose or opened, because that indicates that they're not as fresh. So having those tightly packed crowns is an indicator of good quality, as well as the tops of those being purple, kind of a purpley color, and the base being more of an apple green. So if you purchase your asparagus ahead of time for this recipe, it is recommended that you use it the same day that you purchase it, or as soon as possible after, within a couple of days at the most. And so you can keep your asparagus fresh in the refrigerator by either placing the bottoms or the stem part in a jar of water, just a little bit of water in the bottom to keep them fresh and crisp, or you can wrap them in a damp paper towel and put that in a plastic bag in your refrigerator. Either way will keep them fresh. Let's check our time. Our vegetables should be almost done. They're a beautiful bright green color. I'm gonna give them just a couple more minutes since we have a lot of them in our steamer basket. And I'll go ahead and add our ingredients to our dressing. So we have 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. We have a 1/4 teaspoon of honey mustard, which needs a little help getting out of this bowl. We also have a 1/4 teaspoon of seasoned salt and 1 clove of minced garlic. So we'll add all those together, and we just want to whisk those in our bowl to make our dressing before we add in our vegetables. All right, I bet these are probably done by now, so I'm gonna scoot our dressing bowl just a little bit out of the way. And you might notice that instead I have a bowl of cold water. So what we're gonna do when we remove our asparagus and zucchini from the steamer basket is we wanna rinse them in cold water or dip them. So if you have a sink handy, you can simply run the cold water over them, or you can do as I'm going to demonstrate and just dip them in this bowl. I'm going to go ahead and turn our burner off. Don't forget that part. So why is it important to dip our steamed vegetables in cold water? This is because it stops the cooking process. So it's similar to blanching, if you're familiar with that. If you do food preservation or can produce items, we want to take that temperature down right away. So by dunking them in the cold water or rinsing them, we stop that cooking process, right at its peak so that they don't continue to turn mushy after we add them to our salad. All right, so I'm gonna add these to the bowl that we've made with our dressing. We are actually almost done, believe it or not. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my spoon and stir this around. So we want to get those vegetables coated in that dressing. I was thinking about it, and this would be a great recipe to make for a Memorial Day weekend celebration. Maybe you plan to eat outside or have a picnic with your family while staying healthy and practicing social distancing. This is a great recipe to take for an outside meal because other than our mozzarella cheese that we'll top it with, there's really not any ingredients that require refrigeration. While we do want to keep our food at the proper temperature since it's a cold salad, we don't have to worry as much about those sauces that might be more mayonnaise based in something like a mayonnaise coleslaw or potato salad. This oil and vinaigrette is a safe option for outdoor eating. Okay, you might remember these tomatoes that we chopped up. We are now going to add those in, and this is just a beautiful pop of color and also flavor to our salad. And we'll add in this 1/4 cup of green onions as well. And that was 1 cup of chopped cherry tomatoes, by the way. And so if you buy them by the pint, if you buy them at the grocery store, you'll use about half of your package. So while I'm stirring this up, I'll talk just a little bit more about our asparagus. We used 1 pound of fresh asparagus, and it's easy to remember that if you're using asparagus by itself, 1 pound will give you 4 half-cup servings of asparagus, and each of those only have about 22 calories per serving. So it's a non-starchy, healthy vegetable that has lots of vitamin A and folate. And so we know that vitamin A is essential for our eye health, as well as boosting and supporting our immune system, which might be of special interest to you right now. Also, the folate is especially important for women and could prevent bearing children with a brain or spinal cord disorder. So in addition to the fact that it's yummy, it's also so good for our health. All right, so you can see that this is getting coated really well with that dressing that we've made. And as I mentioned, we're almost through. So our parsley, we have a 1/4 cup of chopped parsley and also a 1/4 cup of fresh mozzarella cheese. So we're gonna add those just at the very end as a topping. I'm gonna go ahead and stir it through. But this salad looks oh so yummy. We really hope that you try and make this at home. Find some fresh local asparagus. Maybe you've grown your own cherry tomatoes, or you plan to by later this summer. And so that is all for today. It's a very easy recipe and is super yummy and fresh as well. So we will leave that there. And just a few reminders of how you can find this recipe. You can visit nctc.com and look under the recipe segment tab, or you can email Barry Hyatt at barry.hyatt@nctc.com. And the ways that I usually share with you to find this recipe is that you can visit Plate It Up Kentucky Proud Facebook page, or you can just type that Plate It Up Kentucky Proud in your search bar and click on that link, and you should be able to find this recipe amongst many others. So once again, we hope that you enjoyed learning about how to make this yummy asparagus tomato salad. We hope that you try it at home, and hopefully Barry will be able to join us back again next month on our recipe segment.